Welcome, everyone, to the Paranormal Pride. I hope you had a great last week and that your upcoming week is going to be great. I have a guest tonight that I think you guys are all going to love. It's Brian Holloway from the UK, Whitby Paranormal. He is an ITC device creator or app creator. And we're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that you've heard us talk about before related to the validity of apps, how they're created, how, I've told you guys before that I've torn them apart and looked at the code to see, what's triangulating, what it's requiring in the background for it to work. Let's talk to Brian and find out more. So welcome, everyone, and welcome, Brian.
Hello.
So just so everybody knows, what time is it where you're at?
It's currently 1 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you so much for staying up with us late tonight. Hopefully you don't have to get up too early tomorrow.
Not as early. No, luckily tomorrow it's one of the days we don't have to get up too early, so it's worked out perfect.
Do you have a day job?
Yes.
What do you do for your day job?
I actually work in a hotel here in Whitby, a hotel called Penny Hedge, which is quite well known in Whitby. I'm a housekeeper, so I work doing all the rooms and things like that. Hard work.
Is the hotel haunted?
That's a good question, actually. It's not that old, but I've seen and heard some weird things, and so have some of my colleagues. As recently, up until just the other day, when I was working in one of the rooms, and I knew there was no one on the floor in the hotel with us. The head housekeeper was just literally about 4 rooms up, and she's got a very distinctive voice. I know her voice, and when she's working on her own, she doesn't sort of like speak much anyway. And I just heard a voice from within the room that I was working in, and I knew it was the room within the room, not my colleague up the corridor. And it was a female voice, and she just said, "Please, sir," just so clear. And it made me turn around. I turned around. I expected someone being stood right behind us, and there was nobody there.
Is it possible that it's the property, or people bring their stuff there and stuff just stays behind?
Yeah,
like they've left their pillow. They've also left their spirit.
Yeah, I think so, because we did a bit of research about the area, and there was nothing major in that area, even before the hotel was built. Nothing of any significance. So I do believe that. I believe because it is a very busy hotel. It's Whitby. We're always very busy here, even during the winter, never mind the summer. And the hotel's practically full all the time. So you got to imagine all those people coming through, all the energy they're bringing in, all the memories they're bringing in. So I do believe people leave things behind.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there's places that you wouldn't think would be haunted that are, and why. And a lot of times it could just be what we're bringing with us. And,
exactly.
We forget things. Apparently we forget our spirits as well.
Yeah, and there's more and more than being left, because I've seen some strange things as well, like shadows and things rushing towards us when I know there's no one there. And it's picking up. That's the thing as well. When I first started working there, not so much, but I would say within the last year, activity's just been slowly building and building and building.
Well, people always think traumatic events cause hauntings. It could just be that this was someplace that somebody really loved when they went, and or it was the last place they visited before they passed, and they decided to go back on vacation and hang out with you guys. So
just keep keeping an eye on what I'm doing. Make sure I'm doing the job right.
Well, you may be doing tours there someday.
I don't think the manager would be too pleased about that, no.
So in your area, is the paranormal embraced?
Yeah, well, Whitby is a very, very old fishing town, very old. And it's obviously, as some people may know or may not know, it's the birthplace of the story of Dracula. Bram Stoker actually stayed here, and this is where he came up with the idea and the story behind Dracula.
Oh.
And the town itself is an old smuggling town, so it's built for smuggling. Even now, there's like lots of little dark alleyways and the buildings just go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And there's been obviously lots of, especially in the smuggling days, lots of deaths and shipwrecks out on the coast and things like that. So it's very haunted.
So were there Shanghais there as well?
Oh, you name it. It was
Okay.
here in Whitby. Yeah. It's a very historic place, and yeah, and you can imagine it also. You've got all the smuggling, all the other stuff goes on, but it's also a fishing town, so you have a lot of tragedy there as well. Lots of legends built up from that as well. It's a fascinating place. It's basically every building you walk past is just history, soaked in history.
That's got to be amazing. Is there, do you happen to know if there's any books like Haunted Whitby or anything that talks about the spirits in the town?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of books. Some of them, Sam just got one recently, which was a very old book about the area. I don't believe that was about Whitby. It was about the surrounding areas as well. But yeah, there's quite a lot of literature on hauntings within Whitby and the locations themselves, or some of them are supposedly haunted. We've actually investigated a few that have been interesting, to say the least. We've had some really strange activity.
What's been the most strange activity that you've heard of in your town?
Well, I mean, there's obviously stories. There's a story of a young girl that died just up the road. I can't remember, it was about 1800, something like that, I think it was. She burned to death, and her ghost has been supposedly seen and heard. There's lots of little stories like that. But the weirdest thing we investigated was a hotel here in Whitby called the Resolution, and we first investigated that many years ago. And the story was that there was supposed to be a few entities in there. One of them, the manager said, was a rather big man. He got the impression of a big, very angry guy. Used to rush him as soon as the manager came in. He said you just feel like someone rushing towards you. Just lots of weird stuff like that. And there was a young girl. Staff had seen things down in the kitchen. They'd see people walking around when they know there's nobody there. They followed them and they disappeared. So we went in to sort of look at some of these claims and see if we could collaborate some of them. And quite daftly, I called out the angry man. I actually challenged him, and we were on live, and someone noticed as we were walking around, I had my sleeves up like this, a scratch started developing on my arm. And like I said, we were on Facebook Live, and we watched it welt, and it went right down my arm, turned around, and then started coming back up my arm again. And that was just, I haven't been physically touched like that for a long time, or purposely scratched like that. And it wasn't just like when you see people getting scratches, a little scratch on the neck or a little mark on their arm. This was huge. It covered me nearly my whole arm, and things like that. Just very, very strange.
I know all about that.
Yeah,
it's happened before to me, so
yeah,
it's hard to explain how you feel at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes at the time you don't feel it happen. You feel it afterwards when it's burning, and you're going, well, why is that? And you're, but when you felt that, did you feel scared, apprehensive, worried, or just what the heck?
It was just a what the heck moment, because we were sitting there watching it happen. That was the crazy thing as well. I didn't sort of feel something and then looked, and then there was just this big scratch. We watched this thing. It's almost like someone was taking the nail and just going like that. It was welting up, and they were actually watching it form on my arm. But I wasn't scared. No, I was intrigued. I mean, to have something like that happen and watching it happen and feeling it, it felt a bit warm. It didn't burn as such. It felt a bit warm, and it started getting a bit sore afterwards because it was quite a scratch. But I was just intrigued. I was watching it, and I was trying to figure out, was this the guy that I called out? And we looked back on the footage to make sure I hadn't brushed against anything or leaned on anything, which obviously can be a factor. And I hadn't touched anything, so we could rule that out. But yeah, I mean, no, I wasn't scared. I was fascinated.
Believe me, I've only been scared once, and that was because a fold-up chair came flying across the room at me, and that could hurt.
That'll do it. Yeah.
I think anybody would have been scared
Yeah.
those 2 times that's happened to me. But so a lot of people assume that when you get scratched, that it is a demon. Okay, we're just going to bring the demon word out
Yeah,
right now.
we have to. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on 1 scratch versus 2 versus 3 scratches?
Well, it's that thing where it's a typical thing where people get scratched. It's always like 3 scratches down, isn't it? It's the classic thing. To me, a scratch is a scratch. Scratch, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, or whatever symbol it may look like or thing. It's not a demon. It's not always a demon. I'm not saying that some of them might not be a darker entity, because I don't like using the word demon either. I think it's bandied around a little bit too much these days. It's just everything's a demon. You hear a twig snap in thing, and it's a demon. What I think is, and what Sam thinks the same, is in life there's bad people. There are evil people, and I believe they're the same in death. I don't think everything's just a demon from hell. I just think it's a bad spirit who's out to cause trouble. And I think if you get 3 scratches, I think some of these evil sort of people, evil spirits, as we think, know that. And I think sometimes they just play games. They know if they do that we're going to jump to that conclusion, and it gives them a buzz, just I suppose like it would in life. If they could bully and scare somebody.
I agree. I believe that demons are rare and far and few in between, and pissed off people in life or pissed off people in death, and and sometimes it's not that somebody's being bad. They just can't control themselves, and they're just trying to get your attention. And I tell people all the time, you need to go with how you feel at the time. If you feel scared at the time, maybe you should be scared. Because your gut tells you a lot more than what you're paying attention to.
It does. I mean, we've got all these bits of fancy equipment we've got to show us, what energy is around us. But we believe like you're the best instrument you've got. If your gut tells you something's wrong, we all walk into a building and we feel energy. That's what we do. We walk in first and we feel the energy. And sometimes you can feel the energy around you, but it's not negative. It's not bad. You can just feel it like static in the air. But if you walk into a location and you feel, I'm going to use the word threatened, but not threatened like that. But your gut's telling you there's something not right. That this is not normal. Listen to that. And then again, it's not necessarily a demon or a really dark spirit, but it could be a trouble spirit. Like I say, don't just automatically go in somewhere, and even if you feel off, don't just jump to the demonic.
Right. And don't jump to the fact that it may not even be spirits. It may just be the person with you might not be feeling up to par. And
exactly.
And sometimes we don't ask that question. We don't ask the question of the person with us. Are you okay to be doing this? Should we not do this right now because you're not at peak? There's all kinds of things that we don't know. I mean, we all know that we walk into some places and we feel weird, and there's no history of it being haunted. There's no proof of it being haunted, but it could be the person behind the desk.
Exactly. You're picking up on, because we not only can pick up on spirit energy, you can pick on empathic, you can pick up on other people's emotions. And that, like I said, that has to be taken into account.
So, we talked earlier about the fact that you are an ITC app creator.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in that?
Well, yeah, that's a story and a half. I've been at the paranormal a long time, all my life. But I got to a stage 8 years ago, and I moved from the UK and I went to live in Gibraltar, and I got involved with a TV show there, and they asked me to come on as like a tech guy. I wasn't into apps then. I hadn't really, because it was the very early days of apps as well. We had Ghost Radar and things like that, which were dubious at best and were just for entertainment. And they asked me to come on, and I had the classic things, K2 meters and things like that. And out of just random chance, someone told me about an app called EchoVox. And I got it and I started playing with it, and I actually messaged the guy who created it, and I was just interested in giving it a go, and I spoke to the producer about it. Apps in general back then weren't widely used, and to have them on a TV show was like a big thing. And he agreed, and so we used it, and we got fantastic results. It was really cool. But after the show finished and things like that, I thought, I love the app, I love the way it works, but I would love to have done it this way. The app at the time, EchoBox, used forwards audio. It was chopped up and things like that and was mixed at random, but it was forwards audio. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to use reverse audio to take out the possibility of any false hits? Because obviously, if you've got forwards audio, you're going to land on a word at some point that might match what the question you're asking. But I hadn't got a clue how to do this. And luckily, I fell in with a group of people who were wanting to do the CM, and we all learned together, and we learned how to develop these apps. And that's literally how it started.
Well, yeah, that's strange because I know that Danny did create an app that went backwards at some point.
He did afterwards, yeah.
But I don't know when, so I'm not going to...
I can remember it. It was cool at the time, yeah. I remember because I used EchoBox, and obviously while I was talking to Danny backwards and forwards, he said, do you want to test out a new app? And it was the one that was rusty, and it was cool because you pressed the button and it recorded what you were was actually being said at the time. You could record your own voice or just record the location you're in, and then it would chop it up in real time and play it backwards. Yeah. But
so you figured out what you wanted to do based on something that already existed.
Yeah, I just wanted to do it a slightly different way, and where that one recorded the sound live and played it backwards, I still wanted to go down the route of like just having inbuilt banks, and so there was nothing being fed into it live, because again that was kind of an issue for us at the time as well. How that worked, I didn't understand exactly how it works. I wasn't actually developing apps then at that time, so I just wanted to go down a slightly different route, but using the reverse audio, because I thought that is where the future of ITC lied. Because a lot of people were like, they were still doing apps at the time and always using forwards audio, and I just had this issue with just using forwards audio, so I just wanted to take it in a slightly different direction.
So how long did it take you to create your first app?
Quite a while. It was quite a learning process. We spent months being taught how to code first, and I started talking to a guy that was learning with us called Javier. He was from Spain Paranormal, and we sort of thought alike. We were going down a similar sort of path, so we worked together and we just learned together, and we went from there. But I think the first one took us about 6 months to actually get it locked down, get used to the code, because there wasn't just the code, because we were doing it all ourselves. We had the code to do, we had all the graphics to do, we actually had the audio itself to create and do. So it was quite a process.
How many apps do you have?
Over the years we've been doing it, we've got quite a few, because we started working with other teams as well, collaborating with other teams who would sort of contact us and say, will you make an app for us? And then they would give us ideas what they wanted, and we'd make those apps for them and put them out to the general public, and those were all free. But we have got I don't know actually how many we've actually got, but probably about 14, 15 different ones.
I counted 33.
33?
Yeah, I counted 33.
I lost count over the years then.
Yeah, on Google Play, I looked you up, and all of these are paranormal apps, so they kind of have to be yours.
Yeah.
There's 33.
Wow, we didn't know
most of them are free.
Yeah, we do a lot. And any that we do as collaborations and with other teams, we say we'll do them for you for free as long as you give them back to the community, we can put them out there for people to use.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why there's so many. I just lost track of how many we've done for different.
So so from what you recall,
Mm-hmm.
if I was to get one app of yours, which
Mm-hmm.
one would it be?
It would depend what you're wanting to do with it, because we make apps. Some are lighter, some are the middle of the road, and some are slightly darker. I would say some of the apps we've done recently, like Verbatim, there's one called Axiom, Wings Paranormal, ones like that are really, really good. The Witch and the Witch 2, which we did, they're slightly more on the darker side, but they were really popular. But our most downloaded app to date is D666, which by the definition of its name was a collaboration one we did, and someone just wanted to go down the old, make it dark and sort of like it's creepy.
So when you say, light the dark,
Yeah.
If you have a dark spirit, will it still come through the lighter box?
Yes, it will. We've actually had that. Yeah. See, what we learned, the reason we have, again, people ask, why do you have lighter ones and darker ones? How does that work when it's just an app? It's about the intention and the audio we put into it, because all the audio we put in, if we do in a lighter app, we'll use sometimes prayer. People do readings for us that they're very positive in nature. We obviously split all that audio up. So what we do is we split the audio up into little chunks and put it back together in random order and then reverse it.
Okay.
So there's no chance of any forwards words being in there to start with, because it's just a mass of gibberish. It's just human tones at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put positive, again, it's a weird thing to say, because it's an app running on a device. But what we found with experimentation and other people doing experiments, that if you put positive energy into it as you're doing it, just like spirit can manipulate the energy in the environment, I suppose, and give you a certain feeling as well, we seem to be able to do that with apps. If you put positive audio in, even though it's reversed and you can't understand what it's saying, it attracts more positive things, or the negative ones attract more negative things, possibly, but they can intermix. We've had negative things coming through positive apps, and we've obviously had positive things coming through the negative apps. So
okay, so you guys got that? D666 is the most downloaded.
Yeah, that shows where people like to go with the paranormal. It's always towards like the darker side of things.
Well, because that's the route the TV takes.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So
we do prefer the more positive thing ones we do. We like the more positive things, push towards more the lighter side of things, which we would encourage people to do, especially if you're just starting out in the paranormal. And we don't encourage you to like go running into a haunted building or supposed haunted building and start blasting something pretty negative out.
So I wanted to say hello to Irene in Japan. I'm pretty sure that's her, since she said from my suicide condo. I assume it's from her. So, but thank you for listening. I'd like to thank everybody who's in here listening tonight. And if you guys have any questions for Brian, please put them in the chat and we will ask those. Gary did have a question for you, and I want to get it while I remember it. He wants to know, what is your favorite app, whether it's yours or someone else's?
Well, obviously I do like my own. It's inevitable. But no, there are a few apps, EchoVox being one of them. That was the very first one that kind of caught my attention, and it's still a fantastic app. And I still believe very popular to this day. I mean, I've got it on my tablet, and I intend using it on future investigations. The favorite one of our own, I think both me and Sam would say, would be The Witch 2. There was a lot of work went into that one. Sam did a lot of work with finding the right mix of audio for that one that we used for the banks and things, and we were kind of very, very proud of that one. But no, I've used many. I mean, people think I just use all our own apps, but I don't. I use again, like what we were speaking about before we came live. You use what works,
Mm-hmm.
and I've used many apps. But again, as we were talking about, you've just got to do your homework on the apps on the Play Store. There's a lot of them. There's a lot more than there used to be,
Yeah.
and some are built by developers like ourselves who just want to show what's possible, how these things work. We're very open how they work. I'm quite happy even now to tell people how the code works, how it, what exactly the app does to do what it does. But as we know, there are some that are a little bit more not so trustworthy.
So, okay, everybody's on here heard me talk about different apps and things like that. So what is a key to an app that may not be above board, that may be fake?
Right. And any app you get, if you turn an app on, any paranormal app, and it wants to connect to the outside world, wants to connect to the internet, is the first red flag. If it wants you to put any information in, which I've tested a few that do, you've got to literally log in with your Google account and things like that. Anything like that, if it needs to connect to the internet at all, they're red flags. For an app to truly work, to me, it should not need any access to the outside world. It should not need any access to anything personal on your phone or your tablet. And it's as simple as that. If it does, then I would question it.
I've told people before that same thing.
Yeah.
If it requires use of my mic,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it does. If you're going to be utilizing the recording part of some of these apps, if it says, "Hey, do you want to record this on there?" It should need your mic for that because you're recording.
Yeah.
If you're not going to use recording and use an external recorder, which I suggest people do, use an external recorder always, because you've got a better chance of. I mean, phones fail. They lose power. They're not going to work at some point, or you can't download it as easily from your phone because you had to download an app and now your phone is full. And I resemble that remark right now. My phone is full. And so I always suggest to use a digital recorder. But if you're in a pinch, use your phone.
You can. You think, I mean, your phone, if you're running an app, we've always suggested, like you said, use a digital recorder, because you're surprised in what you miss in the moment as well. That you'll listen back and you'll have caught things you just didn't hear. But like you said, it's harder to get anything off your phone. I mean, a digital recorder, you come back home, you plug it in, and away you go. And like you said, your digital your phones can fail. But if you're not running an app on the phone, they do make decent digital recorders. If you just literally run the recorder, the sound recorder on your phone, which they all have.
Yeah, it's built in. I mean,
it's built in. That I trust, and it's just basically turning your phone into a digital recorder. I would still suggest using a proper digital recorder, because obviously the microphone input, the microphones on those things are much more sensitive to sounds we can't hear. But at a pinch, if you've got no other choice, definitely just use the built. You don't need to download a separate app. On most
it's built in. Yeah,
it's built in. You can it's trusted app, because it's not meant to be recording the paranormal. It's just meant as a dictation thing, and it works perfectly well.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. I mean, I've done that. The only bad part is your phone gets hot.
Yeah.
And so you're running the risk of burning something up, or at least not being able to use it until it cools down. And it's not always 12 degrees outside to cool it down quick. So keep that in mind. The other thing that I say is always a thing to watch for is, oh shoot, how was it created? You you have to look at the backside. Not that anybody's going to, not that everybody's going to, but is there a keyword in like Google Play that I should be looking at that says, hey, this is just entertainment purposes only. It's not really going to talk to spirits, or, there's words built into this. Is there anything like, we know if there's words actually built into it, actual real words, don't use it. There was this one app, and it kept saying, this place is haunted. This place is haunted.
Yeah,
it's like, okay. And this was called, it was a portal app is what it was called. And I don't know who created it, but I don't know who created it, but it did that for a couple hours. Kept saying the same 7 things over and over again. And I'm like,
some of them do. I've tested quite a few myself. People have actually sent us requests saying, can you have a look at this app? I'm wanting to use it, but I don't know whether it's genuine. And I've looked at it for them. But of course, there are some developers, not all. There's always the bad apple in the bunch. But some of them do put misleading audio. They'll say it's reverse audio. And when we sort of listen to them, you can tell there's clearly forwards audio in there. And like you said, the key to listen to, there's no word you can type into the Google Play Store to pick out a fake app. Because they all under the same umbrella, they all come under like entertainment purposes only, and they all make certain claims. The only true way is look at the reviews of the app you're looking at, because again, if there's anything dodgy about it, trust me, people will put it in a leave a review and put a 1 star and negative comment it. So look at those. If it's a free app, you've got nothing to lose. Download it and try it. And like what you said, if you start hearing repeating things that are just repeating on a loop, that's also another telltale sign. Like you say, if you hear a certain voice, and if you let it play for 20 minutes and then you hear the same voice keep coming through and through, that's planted audio. So just use it and just try and just and again, as soon as you turn an app on, if it's asking to connect to the internet or any personal information, I wouldn't even go any further than that.
Yeah, and look at your permissions on the app.
Exactly.
Look at that, and if it says it has to do this, just make sure you only have to get to the internet for updates and to download it originally. Those are the only 2 reasons you should have to have internet. One of the things that I tell people is triangulation. You have to be aware that if it's asking for internet, it could be triangulating your location. So turn off the location device. Turn off all location.
Turn off GPS. Turn off everything.
Yeah, because of the fact that I tested Ghost Radar years ago.
Yep, same, yeah.
I drove down the road with it on. Okay, I just had it on, listening to it in the car because I was driving. I figured, what better way to test it is, knowing the history of the area that I live. I wanted to hear what it had to say. And a lady had committed suicide in the park, not too far from here. And as I was driving by that location on the highway, it started coming up with information about that. So I look up the articles online, and the exact words it said were in the newspaper article that was online. And so that's one of the things that people have to keep in mind. It triangulated based on my location and told me a story. And sometimes the words that come through are simple words like the, him, her. And they're vague enough to where you're going to go, oh, there's a guy here. And don't trust Ghost Radar. There was one TV show that a prominent paranormal investigator was utilizing that. And it was on it was a reenactment show event. Eventually they reenacted, and he said he used Ghost Radar, and it to me clicked. I was done. I didn't want to hear, because that's not valid. I don't care whatever he got. It made me stop watching because I knew that this was fake. So guys, please keep this stuff in mind. I don't want you guys going out and utilizing something that tells you a word here or there and on your phone. You've got to have something else that goes along with it. Something to validate what you're hearing, and don't take everything it says at face value.
No, I mean, again, even using our own apps and things, the information we get, we still don't truly know what we're speaking to.
No, we don't. And
We don't.
do we consider these apps to be similar to utilizing a Ouija board to talk to spirits, dowsing rods, pendulums?
Yeah.
Is it all divination?
It's all the same. People have asked me that question, and it is. It's no different. Even just speaking out without any devices around you, just sitting in a room and speaking out and asking for a spirit to communicate via a knock or a sound of any sort is opening a line of communication. It's opening that doorway, and that's with just doing that, or a Ouija board, just using a K2 meter to get yes and no answers, or the apps. It's all the same. You're just opening a doorway. You're opening a two-way conversation, and you've got to. And again, what we've always said, just like people would open a Ouija board, you open the session, you do the session, you close the session. And we said, do that with everything you do, any form of communication, whether, again, even if you've got a K2 meter and you're asking it to light up once for yes, twice for no, whatever, open the session, do the session, but always then close. Make that intent, put that intention out that this is now done. Thank you for your communication. You must now step back and just sever that connection.
You know, I never do that. I'm sorry. I never do. Only because the spirits will sit there and talk for hours, and
Yeah.
I think they just go away. I think they end it. They just go, we're done. We're gone.
Yeah. No, we always make sure, because again, we've had things happen in the past where, again, we've had people worried about being followed home, something connecting with them from a location and attaching to them and going home with them. So we just make sure that whatever we communicating with just knows that, some of them, like you say, might just say, right, I'm finished talking to you, I'm off, and away they go. But
yeah, and there will be the time that it doesn't happen.
It don't happen. So we just sort of like to cover all bases and just make sure that nothing's going to, follow anybody back from anything we do or follow us back. We've got enough going on at home without bringing other things in.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of times people go to these locations and they go, any spirits that are here can't go home with me. Well, the bad part is you just left grandma at this haunted location. I mean, how many times do you think that truly happens? Because we had stuff happen at the Sally house. Everybody's always was afraid that something was going to go home with them. And they'd stop at the front door and they go, no spirits can go home with me. And I'm like, well, what about your grandma or your aunt or your father who, maybe there wasn't a portal at the Sally house. It was just everybody dropping off their spirits when they left.
Just always make sure that when you not anything I brought with me is allowed to come back, but anything else that's here stays here. Just put that in there. And
but yeah, and this is, of course, now this is 20 years later after people started doing paranormal investigations all over the world. Now they're going to go, crap, I got to go back and get my grandma from that first place I said that at.
Yeah, I'll have to retrace the steps the last 20 years.
So, and I know I'm making fun, but even though I'm making fun, it's possibly very true. That some of the spirits that we're encountering at these places aren't the spirits that we thought they were. It wasn't, this guy. It was John's grandma that was talking to us because we left her here all those years ago, and she's just crying out for help because she wants to go home.
Exactly. We all carry, like we said before, we all carry a lot of, spiritual baggage around with us. There's people, family members possibly following us, keeping an eye on us all the time. Even when we go into these locations. So yeah, I could believe that something like that would be possible.
So I know sometimes I bring up stuff that I don't even know where it comes from. It's just random crap that falls.
That's always sometimes the best sort of stuff. Yeah, you do the same. Something comes off the top of your head, but it's a valid point.
Oh yeah. So a friend of ours has investigated Ireland, and I asked him quite often, since you're in a location that is old, I mean, no offense, it's old. You got centuries worth of history where you live, and written history at that. So, provable.
Yeah.
What is the spirit that you've seen or heard of that goes back so far? Is there expiration on spirits? Things like that. how do we know what the oldest spirit is
That's the
that
thing.
you've seen? You know, that
That's the
kind
thing,
of
because
stuff.
you've got to believe this, what the spirits are actually telling you. See, here in Whitby, the oldest spirit that we've obviously probably come in contact with is up at Whitby Abbey. My God, Whitby Abbey. I can't remember how far it goes back. It's when was Whitby Abbey originally? Oh, I think she's gone to sleep.
Of
um,
course.
Whitby Abbey probably goes back like 800 years. It's really old, and it was originally a wooden structure, I believe.
Try
Well,
7th century.
yeah. So, I mean, we've been up there and we've communicated with things up there, but again, are we communicating with a spirit that was there when the place was built, or are we just talking with a spirit more recent who's just telling us what we want to hear? It's the magic question.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, not every spirit you're going to encounter died in the 7th century.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a homeless person that died on the street in front of it.
Yep.
That died 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
We don't know. But again, I would like to think that there are some spirits around Whitby that go back to when Whitby was basically founded.
mm-hmm.
There's over 1,000 years of history here. One of the oldest buildings, again, which is about 5 minutes walk from where we are, one of the oldest areas, started out as just a mud hut, and here we are with a full fishing village now. So there's a lot happened in Whitby, a lot.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, and it's just it's beautiful building. And it looks like it's just basically ruins now.
It's ruins now, yeah. There's not a lot left, but it's a fascinating place to walk around. As soon as you walk onto the grounds, the energy, you can feel the history. You can feel it. It's tangible. And obviously next to the Abbey as well, you've got St. Mary's Church, which is the cemetery up on top of the hill, and it's a fascinating place as well. It's very old. So you've got those two places with all that energy so close together. They're literally right next door to each other. But if anybody, and we do get a lot of tourists from all over the world, and that's the first place they head. They go up the 199 steps, which is a famous haunted area of Whitby, up leads all the way up to St. Mary's Church and up to the Abbey. And there's lots of legends and stories about certain entities that roam up there.
Yeah, you guys can check this out on, look it up online.
Yeah.
You'll get lots of information. And it also talks about the tours. I mean, and it's $12 to go do a tour there, which is great. Here you're looking at 25, 30, depending upon the place. And I saw that it was related to the Benedictine order of the church. Atchison Benedictine College is there. So found the connection there between the place that I was to where you're at.
Exactly, yeah.
So so they talk about the Abbey being haunted. Have they always talked about it being haunted?
There's always been, but as far as like I've spoken to, obviously people who've lived here all their lives and things, and the stories going like in families running all the way back about haunted Whitby, the haunted Abbey, the haunted steps. So yeah, these stories go back again hundreds of years, about certain things that are seen up at the Abbey and that have been witnessed. So yeah, these stories have always, even before Bram Stoker actually came here and got the idea of Dracula, there were stories going back hundreds of years.
It's just amazing that what I'm seeing online. So we do have another question for you. This one is from Susan. She asks, do you know anything about the Alice box? It's a computer app. And if so, what do you think of it?
I've actually got the Alice app on my iPad. That's another one I actually do have. Alice is a word generator. We've got a similar sort of app, Ostium, and it's supposed to use the senses. It can use, because again, there's always been this debate that your device can't detect like energies, electromagnetic energy and things like that. But if your device has a magnetic compass, we've shown that can be affected. If you put an electromagnetic field near your phone, it can affect the compass, and we can use that reading to sort of like triangulate roughly what direction the interference is coming from and how strong it is. And Alice Box uses that, and the idea is the spirit is supposed to be able to manipulate the energy around the device and pull out a word. And I do like it. I do use it because I like those sort of things. So again, yeah, I would say, and I know the developer who does those as well, and yeah, I would say that they're pretty good. They're safe. I would class them as safe apps. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Susan and Mike have had that app for quite a while, probably since I've known them. How about, have you heard of the app Necrophonic?
Yeah.
Do you have any feedback on that one that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I'm not so bought on it. I've used it. I've got it. I've actually got it on my device, and I've used it. And like I said, I've heard stuff coming out of the app, and people have also said to us like that kind of loops. There's some looping going on. I do believe even with an app like that maybe has looping audio, that Spirit can still manipulate audio in any form. So I do believe I've seen evidence that it does work still. You know, I've seen some stuff, people using it, and some stuff's come out of it, and it's like, that's a bit crazy, a bit cool. But it's one I've never been 100% sold on.
Okay. How about the Phasma box?
Yeah, I've got the Phasma box. I'm actually, again, friends with the developer. I've known him for quite a while, and that's the one I actually have it on my PC.
Right, I was going to say, because it has to be on Windows.
It has to be on Windows, that one, yeah. And yeah, I've had some really good results because it's got inbuilt banks. It also scans internet radio.
So it does require internet to work.
It does require internet, and it does have a reverse. It does scan radio forwards, but it does have a button you can click that it then reverses in real time, which I quite like. It's one of those apps where it's about trusting the developer. I know we've said about if it connects to the internet, there is an issue there.
Well, you can turn off location devices or location settings on your computer, so it can't utilize that.
And if you want, you can also turn off the radio side of it and just use the inbuilt bank. So you can take that out of the equation. You can turn your Wi-Fi off, and you can still use it. So it does have that as well. But it's one of those apps I've always kind of liked and trusted. I've had it for a long time.
I've seen it in action and thought that it was very, very unique, and I've thought about downloading it onto my computer. The only bad thing is that's me taking two computers everywhere as opposed to just one. Because I always take a computer with me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for that. And then, do you have any feelings about the SLS camera?
Yes, I actually built my own. Now, there is a lot of controversy with the SLS camera, that you can get a lot of false positives, which you can. The trick with an SLS camera is knowing its limitations. Now, if you're pointing, obviously it's scanning, sends out loads of little laser dots and covers the area, and the camera's then looking at that in the infrared spectrum, and it's looking for a human form. It's looking for a head, a torso, arms to then map in. Now, if you point it at a load of junk and your washing hanging up on a clothesline, it can get confused because the Kinect has a sweet spot. If something's too far away, it can confuse, say, a coat hanging up for a person, or I've even seen it, mistake a chair and try to map something in. You've got to be within the sweet spot. I would say about 6 feet in front of you is the sweet spot. If you're within the sweet spot, it very rarely makes a mistake. But what we try and do is we try and point at a location where there's not a lot of background clutter or things in the way. If you get a figure mapping in on a flat wall with nothing on it, that's hard to explain.
Yeah, it has to be no design, no lines, no edges, no curtains. Curtains have folds in them.
Exactly, and then again, the software it can make a mistake.
Yeah. because
We look like,
it's AI. I mean, that's
yeah.
what people need to understand. AI makes mistakes.
Hmm.
Don't go out there and think that chatbot's telling you everything is right, because it's not.
It's not.
You
No.
know, and this is not. It's not true AI, but
Mhm.
it
It's still
makes
it is.
mistakes,
It
just
does.
like people.
It's looking for a human form, and if it's something, like I said, just outside its sweet spot, it'll see what it thinks and think, well, it kind of looks like a person, so I'll map it in, because it kind of quite see it properly, and it just makes a guess.
So Gary asks, have you ever seen a figure come up out of the ground? And let me give you a little background. This
Hmm.
is outside.
Hmm.
And so that gives you you're talking about the sweet spot, 6 feet.
Hmm.
What about outside? You have no limitation. There's walls and trees, or not trees,
Yeah,
you know,
there's
there's,
all sorts. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's all kinds of different things. And sometimes stuff is way more than 6 feet away.
Oh yeah. So what I would do there is, when I'm outside, and I was outside quite a lot, I would only trust a hit that was kind of close to where I'm stood. If I got a hit and you can see that it's something that's way off, I would tend not to trust it as much. And you can also tell as well, when something maps in, if it's jittering and jumping all over the place, it's because it's outside that sweet spot, whether you're outside or inside, but especially outside, then it's struggling. So you've got one of two options. It's either an anomaly that it's seeing that's not really there, it's making a mistake. So just move closer towards it. If it's still there when you get within that sweet spot, then you maybe got something. Or what normally happens, if it's nothing, it's just an anomaly that it's seeing a tree in the distance and it's thinking it's a person, it'll not map in, or it'll map in just as a mess, and it'll be all over the place.
Yeah. Well, in this case, Gary said, or Carl says, it was on the grass crawling.
Yeah. Now we've had a similar thing. Yeah, what we called it the crawlers, and we've had them going up walls. We've had them coming across the floor. I've even had them coming out of a TV. So yeah, I know what he's talking about there. Yeah.
Were they short, about 2 feet tall?
Some of them were quite small, especially the ones that were coming out of the TV at the time. We were doing a live, and we were looking at the black mirrors and things like that, and how spirits use mirrors as portals. And I'd set a mirror up here, and I'd set a mirror up there. And what I didn't realize, that right opposite was my big flat screen TV, which was off, which was basically a giant black mirror.
Giant mirror, yeah.
Giant mirror. I didn't realize that, so I'd created kind of a triangle without realizing it. And when I turned the SLS, I actually had figures mapping in, and it wasn't reflections, because it was a completely matte black screen. We were in the dark anyway. This was being seen in like infrared, and I had little figures literally appearing on the screen, then moving into the room, and then disappearing.
Were
So
they? I'm going to ask you some questions on this. Was it skinny? Were they skinny when you first saw them?
yeah,
Were
and
they fat when you were done?
they tended to disappear pretty quick. Some of them
Okay.
did grow and change shape. Yeah.
Were you exhausted after?
Oh God, yeah. Whenever we have these experiences, it kind of like, I used to describe it as you felt like a spent battery.
And I know Carl knows where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it sounds like it was something that I've seen at the Sally house. I told my husband, I said they were like roaches,
Mm-hmm.
very skinny when we started, fat when we left. We were exhausted, felt like they had drained our energy, and that they would just run around.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they fast.
They
Yeah.
and Dave Constantine gave me a name of what he felt that they were. He felt that they were imps.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to come back in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk about some more stuff. And I hope you all will come back with us. Go get a drink, go to the restroom, come back. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
The views expressed here are solely the opinions of the hosts and the guests, and not necessarily those of the network, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. If you have an issue with the content of the show, please contact the show host. Thank you.
In the time when the world around us was falling apart, I answered the call. I left and you called me a hero. When I returned, you didn't care. Now you treat me as an outcast? 22. That's how many of my brothers and sisters die each day. 22. Every day I struggle with my demons. Every day is a war that I feel I'm losing. Every day I wonder if I'll be number 22. I fought so you could keep your freedom. The least you could do is acknowledge my existence.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore. My guest tonight is Brian Holloway from Haunted Whitby Paranormal out of the UK. And we've been talking about ITC devices and some common sense. Not every day you get to hear common sense talk on a paranormal show, but we are getting that tonight. So hopefully I'm not preaching too much to you guys, but you know how I get. So, we were talking about the SLS camera. We've talked about apps.
Yeah.
When besides apps, what are your favorite, pieces of equipment to utilize on a paranormal investigation?
Well, we keep it fairly simple. Like we said before, we use our own intuition when we go into a location where we feel like we need to be. Like you say, you're the best piece of equipment you've got. Go with your gut. We use a 2 meter, not necessarily just to find an entity, but to find sources of natural EMF that could affect the investigation. As we know, large amounts of EMF can interfere and cause problems. Can make you see things, hear things, cause fatigue. So just check the location you're in, things like that. Make sure there's no wiring that's giving off large amounts of EMF. We do have an SLS, which we do use, and a good old-fashioned digital recorder. Sorry, and obviously we run some of the apps, but we just keep it simple. We don't have loads and loads of these toys you see on a lot of the TV shows. I know people like flashy lights and like them, but I don't think you need all
if you
that.
want that, go to Vegas. I mean, that's the one thing you don't need. You don't need extra lights causing you to screw up your eyes when you're looking in the dark. Last night we had an exit light that was a pain in the ass. That Ron actually had to climb up and put his shirt over the exit light. We had to close a door because of an exit light.
Yep.
Of course, auto lights are fun. Motion lights.
Yeah.
No, Virgil, you're not banned. We can see you. At least not yet, unless you do something to make me ban you. So don't do that. So we talked about that. So what if I was a brand new paranormal investigator, wanted to go out and check something out?
Yep.
What sort of place would you tell me to check out, and what piece of equipment? I can only take two. Okay, I can only take 2 pieces of equipment.
2 bits of equipment.
What do you think I should take? Because I'm new. I can't focus on all these things. I can only focus on a couple things. What should I be doing?
Just keep it very, very simple. Again, the location, that would depend on the person. I mean, I wouldn't recommend, if you're new to this, going into some like really old derelict building where you're going to fall through the floor because you're not concentrating on what you're doing. You know what I mean? Keep it sensible. I mean, wherever people live, there's always, like, say, Whitby or wherever you are, every town's got these locations that are supposed to be.
Would you say like a graveyard maybe might be a good place to start?
Graveyard is a fantastic place to start. Some people say, well, why would a graveyard be haunted? Because why would you think? But spirits do come back to visit, and some of them might actually go to the graveyard where they actually laid to rest. It is possible. We've seen it. So yeah, if you're in a graveyard, you're not going to fall through a floor or down a flight of stairs.
You might fall in a hole, but
you might fall in a hole or trip over a stone. Yeah, but it's probably the safest place to start. And as equipment, digital recorder, If you've got to have just a simple, it doesn't have to be one of the big expensive things. Like we said,
About
you can even
30
use the
bucks at
recorder.
Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be big and fancy. A digital recorder and a torch.
So,
There's
and
no-
when he says torch for you people in America, that's a flashlight.
That's a flashlight. Yeah, sorry.
Unless
flashlight.
you're Peppa Pig fluent and you know what he's talking about. So my grandchildren watch Peppa Pig. So
Yeah.
I can say zebra, and they all know what I'm talking about.
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah. In fact, I'm surprised my grandkids don't talk in an English accent.
Mhm.
At this point, between Peppa Pig, and Bluey, which is Australian, but still, you know, I've got these shows down. And I'll tell you, I know the reason why graveyards would be not necessarily haunted, but why spirits would come back. Because when I was growing up, and I know people don't really do this anymore, but we used to go to the graveyard and have kind of like picnics at grandma's gravesite, dad's, whoever that we wanted to go to. And it was a family tradition to do that. So needless to say, if we show up there, they may come out and talk to us.
Exactly.
And again, you said this yourself, we don't always know who's talking. There could be somebody that's sitting and waiting to jump on you there. So make sure, like you said, intent, and then make sure that you close that session when you leave, because you don't want to bring home
somebody
not
dad.
So, and yes, Virgil, I have a sense of humor, and it gets me in trouble every day. Every day. So we have another question, and this is my pet peeve. I have a pet peeve in the paranormal besides all these other things you've just heard about. My pet peeve is the flashlight trick. I believe that it is misunderstood, and I know that it is a battery that's just charging up just enough to turn it on and turn it off. It's just barely touching. And my husband is a electronics technician. I kind of know how it works. I always have. And if a ghost is going to turn on my phone flashlight where they just hit the button, I will believe that. But a mag light that's just
barely.
Where you spend this much time trying to get it to where it just comes on, I got a problem.
Because the connection is so close, what people forget as well, that it's practically touching, but all it takes is a slight change in the temperature. And the metal contacts can expand and contract and make it touch. And it's not paranormal. It can just be a slight change in humidity or temperature. A lot of things, even a slight vibration just from people walking around can set it off.
People don't realize how much they actually do tap their feet or move their hands and things like that. And a car driving by can shake a building, whether you think it does or not. It can. And you can sit in a building and you can hear cars go by. If you can hear them, they could be moving something.
Exactly.
So, and how close are you to the road? How close are you near the highway? There's this really haunted place in St. Louis, the Lemp Mansion. Okay. I've never investigated it, but it's right by Anheuser-Busch Brewery, right by an interstate in a horrible neighborhood. and it's right off the Mississippi River. All these things. You could be having all kinds of activity in that location that's not paranormal, that's just related to the environment.
Exactly. And I think people forget about the environment you're in plays a big part. You've got to take that into consideration.
And and not knowing your environment can be a big problem. So let's see, where else can we go on all this? When you were creating your device, your apps, okay, I know that you said that some of them were, the first one took you 6 months. Let's just, I'm going to change this. Where are you going now with your apps?
Well, like I said, we've slowed down a little bit with developing the apps, but we I still experiment with sound is important, tones, frequencies, and that, I believe, is the key to opening that doorway. As we know, I mean, I did a bit of research into, like, every culture speaks to spirit in some form, whether they speak to what they perceive as a god of some sort or energies. You've got singing bowls, which create a frequency. We've got Tibetan bells. We've got churches in England and in the US that they always ring a bell. There's always a tone, a frequency involved. And that's kind of where I'm looking at the minute. We've used a lot of human tones and a lot of human frequencies, but I'm also looking into like a tone generator, so we can create multiple tones and mix tones together to create a unique tone, and see if that can sort of generate more activity.
Mhm.
Which,
I have a tuning fork.
Yeah.
That I had seen years ago. Somebody had used it to either talk to spirits or to get the spirits to interact. I didn't know how they used it. But I have one because I saw, I mean, they're cheap.
Yeah.
And are they useful in a paranormal investigation?
Yeah, I believe so. Because I believe, like I say, it's the tones, frequencies, and we believe spirit can generate and understand, again, frequencies way outside of our capability of hearing. You know what I mean? We can only hear a very small spectrum of sound, really. But we have shown that generating certain tones increases activity. And again, tuning fork, like I said, is a perfect example. What we find at the minute is trying to lock down on the perfect frequency, the perfect sound that is almost like putting that key in the door and turning it. That may take a bit longer. It's very experimental at the minute.
We did have a question about the Ovilus. What do you think about that?
Again, the Ovilus, obviously, it's a very famous one, and it works again along the similar principle to the Alice box. Obviously, we talk about the Alice app, which is on a Android device or on an iPhone, but the actual app, they've made a standalone device, and it's basically an EMF detector that detects electromagnetic energy that the spirit uses to pull a word out. I don't believe it's any better or any worse than any of the ones that's out at the minute. They all work on a very similar principle. Ovilus has obviously been out for quite a while. It's been out in the wild for a bit longer than some of the, like, Alice box and things like that. But I do trust the developer of that as well. I have actually used it. I've actually downloaded the version he made for the iPhone many years ago, and I've actually still got it on my iPhone. It's another one of those that I kind of trust. I kind of, trust the developer. But the only thing I don't like about them at the minute is some of them, the actual proper Ovilus devices, they're quite expensive.
Because they're built.
Yeah.
One of the bad things about an Ovilus is that it does have a microphone in it and a recording device. And I mean, it's not a very big recording device, but it does have one.
Yeah.
So that makes you wonder, how it's utilizing what it's hearing. Is it taking what I said 5 minutes ago and going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 demon?
Yeah.
Taking, because I said something about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's one of my distrust with the Ovilus.
Yeah. The earlier devices, Ovilus devices, didn't have that feature. They were basically just detecting EMF. So those ones, I would again, if you're going to go for an Ovilus, I would go for the slightly older generation ones than the slightly modern ones that's got recording features and things built in.
Have you ever taken one apart? Actual Ovilus?
No.
I suggest that if you ever get your hands on one, that you do. I think that you'll learn a lot of stuff that they didn't want us to know. I'm just saying. Gary asks, does anyone in your area utilize dowsing rods?
Yes. We have a few friends around the local area who love using the dowsing rods, and again, the a form of divination, the a form of communication. What I believe the way dowsing rods work is, I don't believe when you're holding the dowsing rods, I don't believe that they automatically pull towards an energy. I think, like what we said before, you're the best device that you have. And I think what happens is a lot of people, if you're using it, say, to find, like, locate a spirit and you're holding them, I think you're the one that's detecting the spirit, and it causes involuntary little twitches and hand movements that then move the dowsing rods in the direction that you're picking up. I think it's just an extension of your own capability to detect these things. But I do believe they work. Yeah, I do believe. I mean, I've seen friends use them, and they're quite interesting.
I'd like to say hello to Colette. I am so sorry that when you were up in Iowa and in Kansas City area that I did not get to see you when you were here. I was so sick during that whole month that you were here. So I'm so grateful that you're here listening tonight. So it's great to reconnect with you, Colette. So I have a comment here from Dan. He says, the ghost hunters on most of the British TV shows, which would be Most Haunted, I would assume,
Yep.
have things thrown at them. We very rarely see that here.
Why
do you think that is?
Because on Most Haunted, it's been shown that Carl, the producer, likes to throw things around. And I do know someone who's worked with them personally. And let's just say some of the things you see on Most Haunted are not necessarily paranormal.
Believe,
we had a rock thrown at us.
Yeah, we had a rock thrown at us last night inside a house, and there were no rocks in the house. It's like, where in the hell did this come from?
Exactly.
But it was just kind of weird. But
I don't believe it can happen. We've had, again, similar things happen in the past to us, but specifically on certain, like you said, TV shows, the problem with TV shows is they need constant results. They need viewers, and as we know in the paranormal, we can go into a location and nothing's guaranteed. We can sit there for hours just staring into the darkness and nothing happens. And that doesn't make for good TV.
Yeah, we used to when we used to travel. I mean, we still travel, but not as much. But we used to travel and when we would watch Most Haunted, because we didn't have cable at home. So in the hotels, they would have this, and at night, that's what we would watch. And because it had been on TV, 25 years?
It's been on,
compared, longer than any other American ghost show. And, and isn't it Carl that just died a couple years ago from COVID? No, who was that? It was the medium.
Derek Okora,
yeah. I was very sad to hear that.
Yeah, he was. A lot of people had issues with him, and I do believe sometimes he over embellished on some of the things he did. But again, one of my good friends knew him really well. Was a good friend, and he said he was a lovely, lovely gentleman. Very genuine. He was good at what he did.
But again, we all tend to sometimes over embellish our fishing stories.
Exactly. And I think what he used to do when he was on Most Haunted at the time, they used to get him to do it on purpose, because again, it made for good TV. It's when he used to go off, as people who watch it, Derek would go off on a tangent sometimes, and he would really go for it, and but he was a genuine medium. He was very, very good.
It was always funny.
Yeah.
The show.
I still watch it.
Table tipping was always over the top.
Very.
And their glass, we never see that here. Okay, we never see anybody with an upside down glass or table tipping. That they don't do that here. And so we've tried doing the table tipping. It feels fake.
Yeah.
So it's like nobody's going to believe that this table just moved by itself. No matter what you do, unless you have a GoPro under the table,
you've got to have all bases.
You have to have like 10 or 12 GoPros to prove that nobody's lifting the table. So we have, this is Bart. Bart's asking he's asking a question. He says, how are you amplifying the frequencies on the, you're talking about tones and stuff. And are you aware phones are unable to produce a true frequency tone?
Yeah, that's why we use external speakers. You're never going to generate the tones that we need out of a phone speaker. It's never going to happen. I've tried it. They make some interesting sounds when you get into some of the lower frequencies. Your phone almost sounds like it's going to explode. But no, the way these will work is you must connect them to a decent quality external speaker that has the range of frequencies needed to be able to think. Because we talk and we're going up like some very low frequencies up to very, very high, way above what we can even hear at times. So yeah, that is a completely valid point. Yeah.
Do you have any plans to investigate or events coming up?
We do. We're doing one very soon in Bagdale Hall here in Whitby, which is one of the oldest buildings in Whitby, and it is very, very haunted. It's a hotel now, and a lot of staff and a lot of guests have seen some very strange things in there. And we're going to be one of the first teams to go in officially, because we've hired the whole place. We've thinged the whole building, so there's just us, a group of investigators going in. There's no other guests in there, so there's no contamination for us. We've got full control, so we're really, really looking forward to that. That's in March, the beginning of March. We've just recently done the resolution again, which I spoke about earlier on, and we got some very interesting results there. We've got a few things planned. We've got the manager of another building in Whitby who is very interested in us going in. They've had some, again, very strange things going on, and they've heard about what we do, and they want us to go in and investigate. So we cannot really say where that is at the minute until we actually get full permission to get in, and we sort of get things organized and sorted. But yeah, we've got a few things lined up.
And Dan, yeah, the Whaley House is really haunted in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Seen lots and lots of really good information from there, lots of good data to suggest that it truly is haunted. So, and yes, I want to go. I've never been there. Been to San Diego, just didn't make it there. Went to the beach instead. I have my priorities right. Beach before the paranormal.
Yeah.
So, do you have a bucket list of places you'd like to go?
There are a few, yeah. We'd love to go here in the UK to Pendle Hill. It's one of those places where, we've always wanted to go. My partner Sam, she's like a modern witch, and she loves all that sort of thing, and we just want to go and experience the energy there. There's just so many that you can't even think of. There's again loads of places in the US I'd love to go and visit. Sally House, as you were speaking, was one of them. There's just not enough time to fit them all in. I would.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing a lot of this stuff after we're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. That's how we're going to experience some of these locations, is to go after we're dead.
Yep. And they've got all the time in the world then to do it.
So, speaking of dead,
mm-hmm.
Okay. We have some people out there utilizing ITC devices to talk to people who have died
mm-hmm.
recently.
Yeah.
As in a day after they die.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it takes some time for a spirit to get up enough energy to actually speak to them?
No. Again, we've got to trust what we're communicating with, but we've communicated with spirit that have been very recently deceased. So I know. I think it depends how they've passed as well. I think there's obviously some people when they pass, they're very confused, don't quite know what's going on. So communication might be a bit more difficult for them. I think some pass just a bit more savvy, so they can just click, get the idea straight away and communicate. I do believe in the paranormal there is an ethical thing, like we shouldn't really be trying to communicate with people that have just very recently passed anyway. I'm not a great believer in it. I do believe in leaving a little bit of time.
Yeah. For mourning, at
For
least.
more, exactly.
For the
You've got to remember
family.
that exactly. These people have families and things. And I suppose if you do these things behind closed doors and private, it's fine. But I don't believe in people doing these things and doing them live and publicly. Yeah. No. But yeah,
I have a direct. I mean, not direct. I have a feeling that it's one of those things that let people mourn at least for a couple weeks before you start putting that out there, because especially, I mean, because if you respect someone, that's going to go a long way with your followers.
Yeah.
If that's what I mean, if you're wanting to create controversy, that's the perfect thing to do. I guess bad publicity is better than good publicity because it travels faster.
It does. So, but it's just unfortunate that when these things happen, a lot of people do see it in more, like myself, in a negative way, and it paints a bad picture for the paranormal. You know what I mean? It brings, yes, it gives like people who are doing that. It like you said, it gives negative publicity, brings people in to watch the controversy. So it's good for them, but it's not so good for the rest of us.
Yeah. Because we have to watch the train wreck. People have to watch the train wreck. That's what it is.
They can't help it. They love it. People love it.
I know, and I wish they wouldn't.
No.
To be honest, you know what? I've never watched one of those lives.
No.
For, when Robin Williams passed, when the Queen passed, when Michael Jackson passed. I did not watch any of those.
No.
I knew they existed, and the only thing I could do is shake my head and go, "You're not worth my time." And
no, I don't
follow that guy.
No,
I don't.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, and yeah, I mean, people often send me messages. Have you seen this? They send us links to the video, and I won't click the video. I don't need to. No. I know exactly what's in there, and no, I believe within the paranormal field, you can't do that. You just can't do it. The only reason you're doing that is for your own self gain.
Right, that or you're rewarding bad behavior.
Exactly, and the problem is the person. Exactly, that's it. Exactly, in a nutshell, they're making money, and the problem is the person doing it should have more respect for the people that they're trying to communicate with. But it's the people watching as well, the people that's coming in, patting them on the back for a job well done, and things like no, just it's if we don't encourage them to do it, they won't do it, because there'll be no reason for them to do it.
Right. And me speaking out isn't going to stop it.
No, it'll not stop it. I mean,
it's just, I'm not going to spend my valuable time watching that video.
No.
Ever. And you know what? It also makes me not want to watch any other video that this person or a person does. It doesn't matter.
No. As soon as they do things like that, that's it. That's me done.
So
I won't watch anymore.
What is your biggest no in the paranormal?
The biggest pretty much like what we've just been speaking around. You using the paranormal for your own self gain. I spoke out about this a long time ago. There's a lot of bullying within the paranormal. Everyone's trying to be the next big thing. But really, in reality, we're all working together. We're all after the same answers. We're all searching for the same thing. And in the earlier days, there was more of a community. You worked together a bit better. There was none of what there is today. I mean, that's going maybe a slightly different tangent from the question you're asking, but
no, it's not. It's you're 100% right. The personal gain. I want to be on TV. I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And there is no.
How do you
validate that?
Exactly. I mean, we all doing the same thing. I don't like the term professional when it comes to the paranormal. Experts and things like that, because I mean, we truly don't understand the paranormal. When we still in the infancy of the paranormal, really, of what we understand. So
There's just some people who have more experience. That's all there is.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words out of my mouth. We all have more experience. I might have more experience than someone that's just coming into the field thing, but that's all it is. I've been doing it a bit longer. I've got slightly more experience that I can pass on to them, but I'm not an expert. I'm not professional. You can't be a true professional in something we truly don't understand.
Right.
So that's another one of my pet peeves when you see like professional this, professional that. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't give themselves titles is fine, but think of something else rather than just the word professional or expert.
Yeah, they're no. And you know what? Somebody just coming into the field has a lot to share with us who have been here because they see things in a different way than we do.
Exactly. They come in with new ideas.
Right. We need the new infusion of people to share what experiences they've had, what wins that they've had in the paranormal. And maybe we can learn something from the new people that come in, and they can learn something from us, and we become, para-friendly. Let's be para-friendly. We don't have to have paranormal unity because that's not going to happen.
That will never happen
in a real world. But we can at least be para-friendly and accept that everybody has something to give to the community.
We do. We all have something to add to it. But unfortunately, even like just being para-friendly at the minute is nearly impossible. I've just on just watching the paranormal on Facebook and on YouTube and things. It's a very hostile place. It's it's quite scary.
Yeah,
it is. And Bart, you know me. I've been cordial to everybody I've ever met, even if I don't like them. They don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
So be aware. You may not know. No, I like you, Bart. So we did have one thing I wanted to share with you in here. Oh, everybody, if you haven't been out there and seen this online, Waverly Hills won their case yesterday. Tina and her husband are back to running the place. So needless to say, start booking your trips to Waverly Hills so that you can investigate and help Tina and them make some money.
Beat the communist demon brigade.
Yep, they beat the historical society that decided that they wanted their building and was taking it from them after they spent all kinds of money on it. And Waverly Hills is on TV all the time.
Yeah.
So the people who actually own it, and most of us have seen Tina on TV. They always talk to her when they talk about the history of the place. So they got kicked out, what was it, a year and a half ago, Carl? Or so, 2 years ago. And they won their case, and congratulations to them and all the best. And now I can at least start planning a trip to Louisville, Kentucky. So the board got fired. Good. The board should be fired. So there you go.
Jail.
Yeah. And of course, my EVP behind me, Ron, says they should be in jail. So, hey, Angel. So, you know what? It's getting late for you. I'm going to probably let you go a little bit early. But before we do that, what do you want to leave everybody with about Brian Holloway?
Well, I don't believe I'm anything special within the paranormal. I'm just someone like everyone else, just trying to do my own thing. Like I said, got into the apps more by accident than anything else, and just trying to show people, if used correctly, what they're capable of. And like what we said, just take away like what we've been here. Just be kind to each other within the paranormal field. Just be friendly. Let's all work together. We all, like I say, are heading for this. I mean, we want the same answer. What's out there? What happens after we die? And if we all work together a bit better, we'll maybe get that answer a little bit sooner.
Okay. We also have Colette says you're a great guy and you made some fantastic apps.
Thank you. That's very kind. I've tried my best. I've like I say, I've been doing these things for years, experimenting, trying different things, and that was the only goal. The a lot of people, you know, they do what they do in the paranormal for fame and money. I've never done that. I've had my chance. I've been on TV, and it just, no. I'm quite happy just sitting in the background, just doing what we do, putting the evidence out we have, doing these apps, trying to show how the apps work, get people to understand how they work. There's nothing sort of dodgy in these things, trying to get them to understand the physics and science of how they work. And just, you know, and if that can inspire someone else to come in and try the same thing and maybe push in a different direction again, that can only help. And I love that when people come in and you see them trying new things, not copying what you're doing, but just trying to go down, like I say, a different avenue, using what you've done as a bit of inspiration. And that's the best feeling in the world.
We do have one more question from Virgil. He asks, what is an EVP? And I responded back to him that it's electronic voice phenomenon. But do you have an explanation as to what electronic voice phenomenon truly is?
Truly, some people have said, well, obviously, an EVP is a voice out of thin air. We don't know. Again, there's this theory that the spirit is either imprinting a voice directly onto the digital media, or somehow it's manipulating, this is the bit I believe, it's manipulating environmental sounds to create a voice that's not necessarily within. A lot of times some people do hear the EVP as it's recorded, they hear it with their own ears, but a lot of time an EVP is captured and we don't hear it, because I believe they can create these sounds and manipulate sounds outside of our range of hearing that the microphone can pick up on the digital recorder, and then it's thinged, and then we play it back and we hear it. But there are different theories, like I say, out there of how they actually do it. I mean, again, it's the ultimate question. The only way we'll probably ever know for 100% sure is when we pass over and we're the one sending the message onto the digital recorder. Then we'll say, that's how we do it. That's how it's done. But it's a fascinating thing. EVPs, when you capture them, they are creepy. They're cool, but they're creepy.
Well, I'm waiting for the day, because at this point I've never captured one. And
I've captured a few. The creepiest, before I go, I'll tell you this one, the creepiest and longest one, because you know when you see on the ghost shows that they catch an EVP and it's always sometimes a name or a word, or maybe it's a couple of words together. You don't know, they're not very long. And I've told this story before, but when I was living in Gibraltar, I went in the middle of the day to a lighthouse and was stood on my own, and I had a digital recorder. I put a little earphone in and I asked a couple of questions. I didn't seem to get any response, so I went home, put the audio on the computer, and I caught a creepy EVP. And like I say, this was the middle of the day, and it basically said, "Brian Holloway, we will find you for sure, and we will talk, and in heaven and hell will hear us." It was an entire sentence.
Oh,
Wow.
and is that out there anywhere? Is it on your YouTube page?
It is. It's I believe it is on one of our videos. I posted it on Facebook, and I believe it's on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, there is an actual thing of that, the actual recording. Yeah. Okay. And it was just weird. But again, it's when I say it's creepy, it's cool, but it's creepy because it's a voice. It's not a mechanical voice coming out of an apps here or out of a ghost box where it's manipulating radio. It's a voice out of thin air. And that to me is the coolest of all, capturing something like that.
So I'm sharing some of your pages, and Susan asked one thing. So do you think a voice that gets recorded is not necessarily the same sex as the spirit, male versus female?
I think an EVP, when you can capture EVPs, what you're hearing, a male is a male, a female is a female. But with the apps and sometimes with ghost boxes, with the manipulating radio frequencies, I do believe that, you can get like what you think is a male voice, but it's actually a female talking to you, because they're just manipulating the audio that's being played at the time. They have to manipulate and twist the audio, and if it happens to hit the audio in that bank that's more of a male tone, it'll use it anyway, just to get the message across. So yeah, but no,
I actually just said that yesterday.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for validating.
You're welcome.
What I've said without even knowing what I've said. So I'd like to thank you so much for coming on, and
Oh, it's been a
I'd
pleasure.
like to
Thanks for
thank-
inviting me on.
And I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. And join us next Monday night at 7 p.m. Central. My guest is going to be Lena Townsend. She's from our area here out in the Kansas City area, and she is a medium, a great friend of mine. I think you guys will really enjoy hearing about Lena and her mediumship abilities. I think you'll really enjoy it. Join us tomorrow night here for the Paranormal Nation Radio, Not So Normal, at 5 p.m. Central. And our guest is Alan Cornelison. And he's in Iowa. He's going to be really good, and he's going to share lots of information with us. So join us tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Central. And so have a good night, everybody. And thank you for listening to the Paranormal Pride.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.